living la vida low carb. This show is changing lives. We talking about your diet, trying to get you feeling right. Cut up them avocados, fry some eggs. Time to explore the longest running health podcast, hosted by Jimmy Moore. Time to give up the crappy garbage. We're getting into ketosis. Every day is a new step to your goal. Yeah, you're getting closer, motivated and focused. Don't stop, just go. Time to get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com.
One of my secrets to my Instagram posts, I'm like, all right, there's a thought. Let's build on that. And I just start writing. And I write until I have no more characters to write. And then I go back and revise and revise and revise until it's done. Yeah, I'm the same way. And if I lost it, which I have lost my Instagram, I've also lost this podcast before. A hacker got in back in 2009 and just deleted our whole podcast page. I lost every single episode. Now, thankfully, I had a producer that kept a backup of all the audio files, and he one at a time in each post. It took him months to get caught up. I want to say I was at episode like 400 or 500 at the time. So it was a lot to restore. If you had to do it now, it's too far gone. 1,700 episodes plus. I would not do that to him. I'd be like, all right, hope y'all enjoyed it while it lasted. So,
yeah. Oh my
but
God. No, that's like the worst thing. Your worst nightmare.
So guys, this is Lesya, and I'm going to take a stab at it. I've literally never heard you say it, and I've never tried it. Holzapfel?
Holzapfel.
Yes!
Close.
So I'll take credit. That's hard. I'm going to call you Lesya from henceforth, because it's a whole hell of a lot easier to say. But she is BSB Tribe over on Instagram. Go check her out. And she's the Fit Moms Squad podcast host. And she specifically helps women who are stuck in their weight loss and they're worried about calories and macros and counting. And what we're going to talk about here today is the whole idea of carb cycling and lots of other things. But the carb cycling one has a lot of controversy for some reason in the keto space. So, and I recently aired an interview that I did with you on Clubhouse on my podcast. So people already know kind of who you are, but just kind of give us a recap of how you got to this place where you are helping clients now.
Yeah, so I started my journey back in 2015. I studied to be a dietitian. So I was ingrained in me that to lose weight, it's a matter of eating less and moving more. And so that's how I approached weight loss all my life. But it never really worked. I was always struggling with my weight. So in 2015, I had my first baby and I had gained over 50 pounds. And I tried to do the, eat less, move more. And it did not work, especially with breastfeeding. It was actually like the opposite.
Yeah.
And I was so desperate. I had a friend that had done keto, but she was going based on Atkins' version of keto. She was doing Atkins when we were growing up, and I remember always yelling at her and thinking, "You're gonna die of a heart attack. You're just eat." She was literally, remember taking like deli slices and like wrapping it in cheese and eating. It's like, how can that be healthy? But she lost weight. She felt great. She looked great. And I was so desperate. I was like, okay, I'm ready to hear about this keto thing because I'm so desperate. So she told me about it. Then I did some research. I found your podcast, this podcast, and Jimmy Moore in the doc, and I binged on it. I learned everything about keto. I think I got to the point where I was like listening to you guys, and I was like, I already know this. And like, how awesome is that to say that I've learned so much that I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to maybe help other women with it. So I lost all my weight and then some, got pregnant again. But like many women, and many people in general, I didn't approach keto as a lifestyle. I thought of it as a diet. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this keto thing, and then I'm going to go back to my normal way of eating and it will be fine. It will be fine. Well, I did that and gained all my weight back. So when I had my second baby, I had gained 60 pounds. And I knew after I had her, I was like, okay, there's something here with keto, right? It works. I have to figure out, how can I make it a lifestyle? How can I make it sustainable? That's like the golden ticket. If I find that out, then it's like everything will be great because I love the way I eat, but how do I make it sustainable? So that I went on that journey of making keto sustainable for myself. I started an Instagram page which is Eat Be Fit Explore, which still exists now, and that turned into a food blog. I love cooking. I started sharing all my recipes. Thanks, Jimmy. And people started following me. That page grew so quickly because I was sharing my journey. I had great recipes. I started getting into more of clean keto because I started realizing that dirty keto didn't work well long-term for health and sustainable weight loss. I was having issues with inflammation, hormones. So started sharing my journey on the blog with the recipes. And then I had a lot of women reach out to me. They're like, I love your recipes. I love your blog, but I'm still stuck. I still can't figure this out. I still can't lose weight. I have hormone issues. I have gut issues. That's what led me to start BSB Tribe, which is a membership community for women that want to lose weight with the holistic clean keto lifestyle.
BSB stands for Bring Sexy Back.
It stands for Bringing Sexy Back, a little JT action. And so that's what I do now. And that's where I'm at right now. And then the podcast. And then I started doing a little bit more about clean keto carb cycling lately as well.
Yeah, I mean, those of us that have been in this space for a long time, I don't understand dogma anymore. And what's interesting to me, Lesya, was before keto came around, I was around, and there was this thing called paleo. And they went through the same growing pains that keto did. Paleo, oh, everybody's excited. Oh, everybody go paleo, rah, 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 paleo, paleo. And then people went, a low-carb version is not paleo. If you eat starches, that's the right way to do paleo. Oh, if you don't eat starches, that's the right you got to feed your gut microbiome with resistant starch. It just came this tit for tat pissing match over what the right version was. And we're doing it all over again. We have done it all over again with keto. That's what killed paleo, and it's what's killing keto.
I feel like it's human nature. Everybody wants to be right. And when it comes to health and wellness and fitness, everybody's an expert and everybody knows what they're talking about. And that's why there's so much conflicting advice about all the diets, because it's like, in a way, I'm like, okay, there's one part of me that's like, maybe they're just trying to be helpful. Maybe that's what works for them and they just want to share it. But in another way, maybe they are just literally so closed-minded and they don't see the whole picture, or they're just so focused on this one thing that, like anything else, there's those type of people. It doesn't matter what you tell them. They will not believe you. Like, they are just like, no, this is the way it is, and this is the way, and I'm right, and you're wrong.
Although I will say, and I saw this in paleo, and I know it's why it's happening in keto, there are some people that are like, I have to stand out. So what's my niche? Oh, I'm going to add honey to my carnivore diet, and suddenly I'm different than everybody else. Or I'm going to say liver is harmful for you when you eat meat. I'm going to stand out from everyone else. Now, there's specific people that were in those categories. I'm not going to say their names publicly, but you know who you are. And it's okay if you want to say incendiary things, I suppose, to try to get attention. I think it helps to deteriorate the message more than it helps to boost it.
Yeah, so again, I think it comes down to, like, there's so many things, right? There are people like, well, is it their business? Is it a marketing thing? Yeah, like you said, do they want to stand out? Or is it just like they're finding like all these things and they're making it more confusing than it should be, right? You and I both know that keto is pretty simple. Eating a low-carb, high-fat diet is pretty simple, right? There's no need to complicate it. But of course, you know, there's these companies that come in and make all these products, and then people are like, oh my God, keto is so popular. How do we monetize, right? Yeah. People see dollar signs because there's keto experts out there that literally know nothing about nutrition, know nothing about health, have not even done keto themselves. They're just promoting it because it sells, because right now it's hot. So yeah. We talked about this in my podcast. Is like, as the consumer, we have to be educated. We have to be aware of this. We're the ones that have to learn and like look underneath the hood, so to speak.
Can I tell you, when I wrote Keto Clarity, I started writing it back in 2013. It came out 2014. I was struggling trying to find these experts. I'm going to try to name some you might still know. Dominique D'Agostino, he was around. Dr. Bill Davis, the wheat belly guy. Maria Emmerich. Ben Greenfield. I'm going down the list of people you might know. Dr. David Perlmutter, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, Terry Walls. The rest of them you probably don't know because they're not really active anymore. And then all these new voices that are out there now, I'm like, where the hell were you when I was writing Keto Clarity if you're such the expert today? Now, I get it. Some people found it in the years after I wrote my book, but it just tells you how transient this is. Let's hop on a trend. And some of the big names, I'm not going to say their names, but some of the big names in the keto space, they came along when they saw dollar signs that were going to be made. I hate to say that out loud, Lesya, but it's true.
It is true, and it's sad, but it's also just the way it works, right? It's capitalism. It's the way our world works.
And I'm not anti-capitalist. I think if you can make money from something and people are willing to part ways with their money, go for it. But be upright about who you were and not pretend like you were always keto.
Yeah, and that's where, again, it's having that relationship with the people. And people, they're not dumb, right? I feel like, especially nowadays, people kind of can tell who's a fake, who's just out there to get your money, and who truly cares, and who's really providing value and cares about your health. And, versus someone that is like we talked about, is like, okay, if you're reading or if you're reading a blog post or listening to a podcast, and then in the end they're like, oh, and to do all of this, you need my supplement. Right. And you need to drink ketones, and you need to do this or that, like, then clearly all of that was just to sell you that, right? And so, again, it's like, I feel like the authentic ones, they will stand out. They will persevere. You will know who's been around, who's been consistent, who's always putting out valuable content, who's done it themselves, is in the trenches sharing their journey, and who is not constantly just promoting crap down your throat.
Yeah, and we have names of people that just popped in our heads as you were saying that. So, and keep that to yourself, people. Don't tell us out loud. We all know. You don't have to say it.
We all know.
But like, I'm even seeing a move, and I think we talked about this when I was on your podcast, which again, guys, go check out the Fit Moms Squad podcast. Yours truly, the first male ever on the show. I was very honored you had me on for that purpose, and hopefully we provide a good value for your listeners. But I feel like we're at the point where a lot of people are running away from the keto label. I mean, BSB Tribe, I'm looking at your page. There's literally nothing on there about keto at all in your bio on your Instagram page. Is that by design?
Yes, that is. Because I don't want to, not that I don't want to be associated with keto, because keto did nothing wrong. Honestly, I feel like, what's keto got to do with this? Poor keto was like, I'm getting all this hate. I'm just a way of eating. I'm just a metabolic state. I think of keto over there, like crying in the corner, like, why does everybody hate me? Because that's the thing. It's this like association that we have now with keto. And I also don't believe in a one-size-fits-all. So keto might work well for one of my clients, but for another client, it might make her feel like total crap and cause her to gain weight and cause her hormones to get disrupted and all that. So I don't like to associate and say that I only help women that do keto. Now, most of my audience are interested in keto because that's how I built up my audience over the year. But I don't want it to just be, I only do keto, and if you don't want to do keto, I can't help you.
Well, keto, the term has been co-opted to mean whatever the hell you want it to mean. So that's part of the problem. And you're mentioning the food companies earlier slapping keto and everything just to make a buck. I mean, literally almost all of that is just junk. When you go in any grocery store and you see keto, just turn on the back. It's going to say whole wheat. It's going to say grains. It's going to say sugars. It's got all kind of junk in it. And so when a term has been co-opted, plus we assume keto is just one thing. Paleo dealt with the same thing. It's paleo. And it's not, no, it's paleo across the spectrum. And keto the same way. It's a spectrum. I mean, I know pretty elite athletes that people like Zach Bitter that run marathons and ultra marathons in a world record pace. He's loading up on carbohydrate on race day, like 150, 200 grams of carbs. And then, of course, the ketones and the fats sustain him throughout the race. Is he keto? For him, yes. And then someone who's very, very insulin resistant and needs to keep carbs extremely low, maybe bump up protein a little bit and moderate the fat. That's the keto that's right for them. I feel like when we think it's a diet, that's where we fall off the rails.
Keto Chow is a customizable shake mix that is also perfect for cooking and baking, giving you simple, nutritionally perfect meal options. Keto Chow. Make keto easy. Discover your favorite flavor at jimmylovesketochow.com.
Yeah, and I think that for me, and we talked about this, is like there's different ways to do keto as far as fitting, which macro way do you want to do it? Like, do you want to have the higher fat, the lower protein, whatever the way, like carb loading, all that, carb cycling. But I think we can all agree that if we're going to just take keto and substitute the standard American diet to a keto standard American diet, where we're just going to take all of our normal junk foods that we used to eat, and now we're going to switch it over and just swap it out with keto junk foods, that's not really making a change in your health. Yeah. You're just switching from the regular junk food to the keto junk food. And yeah, sure, you might lose some weight in the beginning and water weight and all of that. And yeah, it's better on your blood sugar and your insulin, but then really, what are those ingredients doing to your body long term is the question. And again, I think it's also, if you ask a stranger on the street, what do you think of keto, or what is keto? I bet you 9 out of 10 will say, wasn't that diet where you just eat bacon and butter all day long? So it's that association, and it's like, whose fault is it that people have this? Is it our fault as the keto experts? Like, I don't ever say that. Where did they get this? Keto just eating bacon and butter all day?
Well, there is a popular book called The Bacon and Butter Diet, and it's basically a ketogenic intro book, and it was very popular for many years. I was just like, oh, that's not the message we want to put out there. I mean, God bless the girl that wrote that book, but it became this mantra. And the same happened with Atkins when I came around and I started telling people I did the Atkins diet 17 years ago. People are like, oh, you ate meat, cheese, and butter. And I'm going, is that what you think the Atkins diet is? Really? Yeah, because the persona of it was such that people felt it that way. And let's be honest about something. We don't know a lot about what keto actually is. We assume a lot of things because you prick your finger, and Volek and Finney in their book, The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living, wrote that it's between 0.5 and 3.0. But we don't know. That was their hypothesis based on their experiments. We don't really have a huge grasp of understanding of when you've been in ketosis and maybe you cycle in and out because you carb cycle. We're going to get to that in a second. Does it provide more benefit than if you stayed in a constant state of ketosis? We really don't know the answer to that. We don't know what happens to ketones over the period of time as the body gets more efficient at using them. Honestly, Lesya, when I test my ketones now, I very rarely show a high level of ketones, and I always show a lower level of blood sugar. Mm-hmm. Am I out of ketosis if I'm 0.4, have a blood sugar of 81, feel great, my brain's on fire, like I've got all the benefits of ketosis, but I'm supposedly not in ketosis? I just don't think we know enough to be verifiable about that kind of thing.
So I think it's confusing, and that all of that is very confusing, especially to beginners. So I'm glad you brought that up, because here's what I say. Yes, you're probably in ketosis. A newbie, 0.4, probably not. And so here's the problem. I see so many beginners, they're just like sharing their ketone numbers and their keto mojo. I'm in ketosis, and it's 0.2 or 0.3. No, like those, it won't even be 0.5. And I'm like, well, but that's not nutritional ketosis. Yes, it is. That person so-and-so told me that it's nutritional ketosis. I'm like, nutritional ketosis is 0.5 and above. However, once you get that adapted, you've done this for a long time, your body starts utilizing those ketones. They might not show up on the meter. So this is such a great point for beginners to know the difference between your ketone measurements when you start keto and when you get fat adapted. And also, you're right. How do we really know if that's truly ketosis? Besides the studies on epilepsy and all those things with children, there really is we don't have enough data to truly know, which is why we use those other markers of clarity and energy and, appetite decrease, all that stuff.
Or if you get a higher ketone level because you took an exogenous ketone or MCT oil or some other precursor to ketone production, rather than letting your stored body fat becoming those ketones. This is why I have a problem with EKs, why I have a problem even with dosing of MCT oil. You're not letting your body tap into stored body fat to produce the ketones. I don't know about you guys watching, listening right now, but I want my stored body fat to be released and turn that into ketones, if anything's going to be turned into ketones, rather than consuming things that will then show ketones on a meter. So I'm all happy and nothing's happening on the inside.
Oh my gosh, I can't even with the exogenous ketones. Okay, there's a purpose for them. If you're super athlete and, again, children, epilepsy, certain conditions, stuff like that, you need to be in that high therapeutic, cognitive. But here's the deal. You're right. There's the other spectrum, right, where it's low ketones, and then there's high ketones because you're adding ketones from externally. And yes, people, they drink those, and, of course, it's a whole MLM marketing thing, which I'm not against network marketing at all. But once it gets to the point where it's false information, that's when it bothers me. So drinking ketones is not the same as your body producing its own. You're going to drink them, and then you're just going to, I call ketones expensive urine. Because that's what it is. You're paying $130 a month to pee out ketones. It's like, and you're right, you're not giving your body the ability to tap in. Now, MCT oil, I will say, I agree with you. However, I do love MCT oil personally. Yeah. I've been using it for years only because, I'll tell you the reason. When I do MCT oil, when I do drink coffee, when I'm not trying to manage my hormone stuff, MCT oil in my coffee in the morning gives me so much mental clarity and almost this high, and I'm not hungry until 1 or 2. So it's kind of like my meal, and I just love the way I have energy on it. Now I don't drink it to up my ketone levels. I don't drink it in substitution of following the way of eating.
Well, the reason your energy goes up and your brain is more calm and everything is because ketones got boosted. So it does provide that benefit, but you just noted a good purpose for it was it kept me from overeating in the morning so I could eat later. So indirectly, not that calories mean anything, but you ate less spontaneously because you had that little bit of 200-300 calories worth of MCT oil.
Yeah, because in the mornings, usually I'm so busy, I don't have time to eat breakfast. Yeah. So this is kind of my breakfast. I don't have to worry about, okay, well, I'm not going to be hungry, so I don't have to oh my God, I want to grab snacks. Right, snacks. Yeah. Another issue, the whole snacking thing. So it's kind of like my breakfast, and it keeps me full, but it also gives me that mental clarity, which is why I use it. I do not use it just to raise my ketones, though.
Oh, I have people come after me. They love their bulletproof coffee. I'm like, guys, should roll. If you get a bit out of that, I'm all right with that. But it's just just know, and especially ones that, I'm fasting, and I had my MCT infused bulletproof. I'm like, you're not fasting anymore. They get so pissed at me when I say that. So
well, there's, again, just like keto, there's different types of fast. So you can say I'm doing a bulletproof coffee fast. Technically, I'm not eating food, but that would be more accurate. But let's not say that we're fasting when we're adding a half a stick of butter and MCT oil to our coffee. And I have nothing against bulletproof coffee either. But again, it's very popular, and it's also some people literally think to do keto, you have to drink bulletproof coffee. This is where the problems come in, where all these musts, people come to keto and they're like, I want to do it. I heard great things. Okay, I have to get bulletproof coffee. I have to get MCT oil. I have to buy exogenous ketones. Which ones, all of these things is you don't need any of it. You need real food. That's all you need.
And it's so fun. When I started the Atkins diet, Atkins had died a year prior to me starting. I didn't even know who he was. I got his book. I read the book. I didn't know it was kind of dying off in terms of the trend because Dr. Atkins had died. But it was so simple at the time. there weren't like these negative, hateful, there was no social media then. And so that helped. So there was boards, there was forums and boards and things that you could go. I think MySpace might have had a page or whatever, but yes, it's a long time ago. But I didn't get distracted by the noise. I read Dr. Atkins's book. It was simple. I stuck with it and lost 180 pounds and came off of 3 prescription medications and got my life back and started this career that I'm still doing today. Now, when people start keto, there's so much noise. There's so many voices saying, you must do this, you must do that. Oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And it convolutes it. And people often say, I just want the basics. I'm like, that's why I wrote this book. Like, I literally wrote that book. So it would be a starting point. And I wish there was a way when people were looking for streamlined information. I know Diet Doctor does a really good job. There's a lot of people that make it real basic. Want to start keto? Here's where you go. But people end up finding one of the obscure podcasts talking about exogenous ketones or talking about bulletproof coffee, and they get confused right off the bat. And I say it's probably discouraging more people away from keto or doing anything than anything.
I know. I see a lot in like Facebook groups, because I follow all those keto stuff and everything, of people saying that like keto's expensive. They're like, I just can't afford this way of eating. And I'm like, what the frick are you eating? Like, are you buying like a whole grass-fed cow? Because sure, I guess you can say that. But then when I asked them, like, why do you think it's expensive? Because if you really added up the amount of times a week you probably ordered DoorDash, right? And now you're making your own food, and now you're switching for real whole foods, dollar to dollar. Like, let's really compare it. So they start saying, well, I need the exogenous ketones, and I need the MCT oil, and I need all these fancy products, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you don't need all of that. So, right. Almond flour. And yeah, the baking stuff, sure, it's a little on the high end. But guess what? You don't need to do that. And plus, you probably shouldn't, because that will stall your weight. I'm like not against keto treats. I have amazing recipes on my blog of keto desserts, but they're desserts, and they're not supposed to be eaten every day. So yeah, if you're making desserts every day with almond flour and the chocolate sugar-free stuff, yes, of course it's going to be expensive, but you shouldn't be anyway if you want to succeed with this long term. So when you really think about, like, is it really expensive? Because I feel like I've saved money since I've done keto. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, I actually did the cost analysis. This is many years after I went on the Atkins diet, and did just kind of guesstimation based on all the fast food and the Coca-Cola and the junk food and everything. I adjusted for inflation and everything of what it would cost me today to still eat like that. I would be dead today, by the way, if I kept eating that way. But I jumped to 2020, whatever it was, 2019, I think is when I did this analysis. And then I looked at what I spend now, and I get really good quality food. Well, number one that jumped off the page was I ate a whole lot of meals throughout the day. Now I'm eating this many meals. Mm-hmm. And it's like, just that alone, the price dropped. But the cost analysis was about 3 to 1. I was spending 3 times as much money on cheap food, and all of it was cheap food. Buy 10 for $10 Little Debbie snack cakes, 10 for $1 ramen noodle. I mean, I was buying all this junk and then going and get the supersized meal at McDonald's, Taco Bell, 7-Eleven. I mean, trust me, their stocks all hit when Jimmy went low carb.
And that's another thing. It's like, when you think of it, it's like you're going to eventually eat less, not because you're calorie counting, but because you're not going to be as hungry, because ketones, they decrease your appetite. When you're in ketosis, you're not as hungry, so you're going to eat less. So if you eat less, you're going to spend less on food. So like, everybody wins, right? I feel like it's actually the opposite. It's like cheap to be keto. I don't know why people are thinking it's expensive.
Well, and then you add in the 3-day fast here, a 24-hour OMAD there, even just an intermittent fast. You're cutting out several meals that you used to eat. Mm-hmm. And snacks that you used to eat that you're not eating anymore. And it lets you have money redeemed in your pocket to buy the better quality. Plus, the other kind of monkey wrench in the whole thing is, if I was still eating that way, if I'm still alive, I would be heavily, heavily in need of medical care. I might have gotten COVID and died. Like, let's be real. And so all of that has to be thrown into the equation as well. How many doctor bills have I avoided? I never go see the doctor. I don't have to. I feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's enough. Yeah, of course. Even the medical thing, like think of people just see in the moment, right? In the now. What am I spending now? But what I ask my clients is like, okay, you're spending this now, but think about if you do nothing now. Like this is like, let's just future pace yourself and fast forward 20, 30 years. If you don't do anything now, you don't fix this problem now, what are you going to pay later in medical bills, like you said, in medicine, in like surgeries, in all of those crazy, in amputations of the feet because of diabetes, all of the things that you're going to be later. We don't think of that because we're just so focused in the now. And what am I paying now? It's now.
Hey guys, you know I'm all about healthy nutrition, and I have a brand new product I want to tell you about called Athletic Greens. This is not just a multivitamin. It has 75 essential elements that you want to have in your diet, from probiotics to greens to digestive enzymes to prebiotics. There's so many things that they pack into the Athletic Greens. The main reason why I love them is it puts it all in one place. Like literally you'd have to a la carte buy all of these different supplements, and they do it all in one package. So if you go to athleticgreens.com/Jimmy, and you can get a special discount if you go there, and the discount is you get a free 1-year supply of their vitamin D as well as some of their travel packs. Go check it out, you guys. athleticgreens.com/ and quality of life. Like my quality of life at 49, I think I live a pretty good life. I feel good most of the time. My brain's on fire. Like I'm not dealing with a lot of the chronic issues that a man of my age is supposed to be dealing with. I've got some issues, but it's nothing huge. But it's just, you don't think about those things. Like you said, in the moment, you're just focused on, oh my gosh, I've got this much money to spend on food, and yet it seems that it's going to cost this much money. Like at the end of the day, pare it down to eggs, pare it down to like the cheaper foods, and you can still eat very nutrient dense keto without breaking the bank.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, it's like, yeah, sure, it's awesome if you could eat all organic and all grass fed and pasture raised and all that, but if you can't afford it right now, just do the best you can. And even like conventional, just, try to avoid the dirty dozen. And even if you maybe limit your red meat and then, or once a week, you can get the grass fed, but limit the amount that you eat later. It's like making little tweaks. You don't have to completely do it perfectly.
I remember Rob Wolf one time from the paleo world talked about, if you can't afford the grass fed when it comes to meat, try to get the leaner cuts because it's the fat that stores all the toxins in the animals. And so just cut that off and then add your own quality like grass-fed butter to it if you need that little bit of extra fat. I mean, we try to overcomplicate it like we were talking about earlier. And if you can't do grass-fed, grass-finished, I'm very fortunate. I've got this company that sends me these beef sticks. So the Paleo Valley little beef sticks, and they're grass-fed and grass-finished. Like I know when I eat those, that's a quality source of fat and protein. But if you can only get conventional, try to get the ones, because the protein doesn't really get denatured or anything negative with it. Even in a grain-fed cow, it's the fat where the problems come in, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point. So just making those type of adjustments, right? And having it just be where you're like, well, what can I do? What changes can I make slowly, right? And then once I'm saving money and I see I'm saving money, then maybe I can put more money into more organic and grass. But you don't have to do. And I think that's the thing. We're so obsessed with like, if I can't do this perfectly, then I'm not going to do it at all.
Oh, you're hitting on something so good, because people do think, oh, I have to do it absolutely perfect or none of it's worth it. And I'm thinking, that doesn't make any sense at all. If you can do halfway keto, that's better than no way keto.
And that's been the problem, I think, with keto, and the fact that we've just attached it so much to this metabolic state and that if you're not in ketosis, then you're not doing it right, and you're not in ketosis, so you might as well just eat all the carbs and sugar and try again. And it just attaches this all or nothing mentality to the keto way of eating, which I struggled with personally, especially when I started, because I'd be like, okay, you know what, I'm doing keto, and then maybe I'd slip up and have too many carbs, and it would show up on the meter the next day, and I'm like, what the heck, I'm not in ketosis, I might as well eat all the carbs and sugar, and then I'd start again, and it happened like all the time, because I was so focused on this all or nothing, where if I'm not in ketosis 100% of the time, then it's not working, I'm not losing weight, I'm not burning fat, all the things, so I might as well just eat like crap. And that's where people run into problems.
You know what else is a problem? And I, again, saw this in the paleo world, and I'm now seeing it in keto and even carnivore, is we forget there are different types of people. There are people who eat for athletic performance. There are people who eat and they've got some form of insulin resistance. For women, it's mostly PCOS or autoimmune. They eat for autoimmune. And so everybody has a different reason that they're eating keto. And then I think about certain people that they eat kind of keto or carnivore to gain weight and to build muscle. And it seems to me that to have this across the board, everybody should be doing it this way, is so short-sighted. Think about any other part of your life where there's diversity of people. Would we want a one-size-fits-all for all those people? No. And so why do we do that with keto?
I guess, again, it's like, I feel like everyone wants to be right? So they're like, no, this is the way to do it. This is the right way. And it's like, if you're not doing it this way, then you suck, you fail.
And here's the funny thing, Lesya. All be right in the right circumstance.
For them, yes, and that's the thing, like, they can all be right, or they can all be wrong. Who knows, right? This is why I no longer say, like, what is right and what is wrong. It's like, it depends. And so, again, I think it comes down to the people's personality and the fact that everybody and their mother, when it comes to nutrition and health, they're an expert. They know it all. They like study Dr. Google, and they know everything about nutrition. Did you, I don't know if you experienced this in your lifetime, but I feel like anytime I talk anything about diet and nutrition, like everybody knows everything. They all have opinions. They're just like, oh my God, and I heard this, and I read this, and I know this. It's like nobody in other topics, they don't like talk about that, about investing, about real estate, about entrepreneurship. But when it comes to diet and nutrition, everybody's an expert.
Oh, but I had a cousin that went on that vegan diet, and that vegan diet really helped her. So it's good for everybody. Don't you know that? So
yes. And again, we talked about this on my show. It's like, I think it's moving towards this personalized nutrition approach where, we understand that it's not a one size fits all and everybody's different. So how do we make it work for you? What are the changes and tweaks and adjustments we have to make for you? Like in my program, all the women that are in there, they're all doing different things. Not all of them are keto. Not all of them are clean keto. Not all of them eat this way or that way. They're on different journeys because that's what they're dealing with. Some might have hormone issues and they're focused on that. Some might want to build muscle, so maybe they want to try carb cycling. So it's so personalized. You pick your own path, and I think that that's what we need to start doing.
Yes. All right, let's get some arrows thrown at you now, Lesya. Now that we've set up dogma being stupid, let's see who's still dogmatic. Carb cycling. Tell us about why you incorporate this, and you just created a new Instagram page, Clean Keto Carb Cycling, which all sounds like an oxymoron to people that understand things, but go check that out, you guys. Why carb cycling?
Yeah, so, like I said, I've been doing keto for almost 6 years, and what I found that my body started adapting and stopped changing. And on top of that, I noticed that, there are certain hormone issues that I've gone through with stress and my cortisol and adrenals, that after doing some research, I discovered that maybe a strict ketogenic diet would be the best approach, and cycling carbs heals that cortisol, especially at night, and lets those adrenals rehabilitate. So that's I started experimenting for those reasons. And then I got really into it and started diving into what else can I do with this, right? So I started doing it around my workouts. So I started lifting heavier. So the days where I would lift heavier, I would have carbs right after. And what I found was, even though I was doing that, I was still able to maintain ketosis, or the number. But still, it's great to measure the data and my blood sugar. I was still able to be in that state of ketosis while cycling carbs. And then I went down in the rabbit hole. And I found out that carb cycling is so great for so many different reasons, especially for women around their periods. So there's a certain time of the month where if you have more carbs, it kind of helps your body avoid all of those issues and symptoms that us women have, and helps you get through, have a better experience with it.
Isn't it like 7 to 10 days prior to your cycle beginning? Time to up your carbs, and then once you start your cycle, that's the perfect time to be strict keto, really, even fast if you wanted to for like that first 10 days. It's amazing, and I'm so glad I'm a dude because I don't have to think about these things. But you girls have that issue where if you're not aware of these things and you're fasting while you're leading up to your period and you feel like crap, and then you start maybe trying to add in more carbs when you start your period and you feel like crap, maybe we're kind of undigging up some clues for you to help you there.
Yeah, so what I found was that the week before my period, and usually a lot of my clients' period, is when we get the most cravings. And this is because we need more calories, we need more carbs, because our body's essentially like building another organ. It's ready to be like, have a baby. And so when we don't do that, when we don't listen to our bodies and we're just fighting, our cravings get worse. And what happens is many women end up falling off the wagon. And this is why one of my most popular blog posts on my blog is period cravings on keto, because it's so hard to get through them. But when we're strategic, when we carb cycle in a healthy way, and I'm not saying eat like Twinkies and salt and vinegar chips carb cycling. I'm talking about the healthier, starchier vegetables that we try to avoid on keto. Then our cravings, we can get through them without falling off the wagon. It helps us avoid extra bloats and headaches and cramps and all the things that come with our periods. Yeah, you pulled it out. Not like I'm like one of my most popular posts, because it's a struggle. Women struggle with period cravings, and when they're doing keto, they don't know. I love using GIFs or GIFs, however they're called. They don't know how to handle them. They're like, I want chocolate, I want it now. And so, oh my God, perfect timing. Literally, that is how we feel. And so this is so cool, because now we can learn what really happens in our bodies during that time, and how can we make tweaks and adjustments and maybe have a little higher carbs. And then, like you said, the week of your period, bleed week, is perfect for keto. Like perfect, absolutely beautiful time to do some fasting, to do some keto and get through that week and then jump right back in.
And your body is more apt to make ketones when you're in that state. And it kind of makes sense, because the bleed actually helps to boost it, because the concentration of your blood becomes less dense, or I guess more dense. So that now the concentration of ketones would be high. Anyway, it's kind of cool, the process of it. Again, glad I'm a dude, don't have to think about those things. But for women that you help, it's probably like enlightening when you open their eyes to this kind of thing.
It is, because they're just like, okay, wait, so I don't have to fight my carb cravings. I can actually be strategic and incorporate some and feel better. And so it makes it more flexible. And now it's a lifestyle. Now it's no longer a diet. And this is why I think clean keto carb cycling is awesome, because a lot of my clients, they're like, okay, I love keto, it works, but what happens once I lost my weight that I want to weight and I maintain? What if I don't want to do keto forever? And this is where clean keto carb cycling is the solution, because you can now sort of wean off of keto, but not completely go away from it, because we all know if you completely go away from keto and stop it, you're going to gain your weight back. It's inevitable. But now we're going to be strategic. We're going to use both the keto and all the benefits and carb cycling and combine them in a way to make a sustainable lifestyle that's enjoyable.
Here's the funny thing to me, Lesya, is when people have a cheat meal or they cycle in carbs, they think, oh my gosh, I'm completely out of ketosis. All that work I've done for however long they've been keto, all gets undone in one day. It's like, no, your body is still fat adapted. Like, it's going, okay, you gave me this burst of glucose. What is it? All right, let's see what we can do with it. And then if that calms down, once you kind of have your carb cycling, you go back to keto, the body's pretty efficient at getting back into ketosis again and keeping the benefits going. I think we have a weird kind of mental block of, oh, if I have one morsel of carb, I have one sweet potato, it's going to undo all the months, years I've been on keto. No, it won't.
Yeah, and that's a very important point that you bring up as well, because I say that you should not even think or consider carb cycling until you've been fat adapted.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to be able to go back and forth, but you still want to give your body a chance to become fat adapted. So if you're doing 1 week, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I just started keto last week, I'm on a carb cycle, you're probably not going to get the best benefits from it.
Right.
And so I always tell, like, the prerequisites to clean keto carb cycling for my program is you have to become fat adapted. Now, how long does that take? On average, in my opinion, I would say 3 months. I don't know what your opinion is, but I feel like if you do 3 months of keto with minimal cheats, you can allow your body to become fat adapted.
By 3 months, absolutely. I think you can see ketones present in a consistent way for nutritional ketosis within 2 to 4 weeks for most people. Within 6 to 8 weeks, it's pretty much started the process of keto adaptation, but full on 12 weeks, 3 months, yeah, you're good to go at that point.
Yeah, so at that point, now you're like, okay, my body's fat adapted. Now I'm going to strategically bring back carbs, and I'm going to teach my body to be efficient, metabolically flexible, where it can both switch from fat burning and also using glucose in an efficient way and not blow up like a balloon. Because what would happen, and this happened to me, is I would do keto for so long, and the minute that I would eat something carby or garbage, like you say, I would blow up like a balloon because my body was not, it has not had glucose, that much glucose in so long, it didn't know what to do with it. So clean keto carb cycling is a great way to make your body flexible, to adapt, to know how to use both and be able to like swing back and forth, especially if you're someone that's active, if you're someone that's trying to build muscle, if you're someone that's athletic or running marathons or things like that.
Yeah, I had Tara Garrison on last year, and she has gone through a similar epiphany as you. And she found that post-workout, she would add in a few carbs that would refill the glycogen stores so that the next day she felt like superhuman with the workout because she had that glycogen that she just burnt through that at the end of the workout, full-on ketosis, even though she had maybe 100 grams of carb bolus in that previous day to refill the glycogen stores. So again, strategic use of the carbs. You're not telling people go out and eat candy. You're not telling people to go out and have, junk food galore. That's what people think of when they hear carbs. You're doing it in a clean way. What is it? Sweet potato, white rice. What are the clean carbs?
So all the starchier vegetables, all the ones that we try to avoid with keto. So all the squashes, sweet potato. The only way, what I teach is if you're going to do the white stuff, like the white rice and the white potatoes, do it when they're cool so they're resistant starch and you get the benefits. Yeah. But, the carrots, the beets, I also like to do steel cut oats, gluten-free oats sometimes mixed with protein so you have that balance with your blood sugar. I love incorporating lentils. So you have to be careful. Obviously, some people are sensitive to that because of gut issues. Yeah. So as long as you don't have issues with legumes, I love doing lentils and black beans, some chickpeas, stuff like that. And then the fruit, right? So I never want to go like extreme and do like a lot of the pineapples and the mangoes just because so here's the thing about clean keto carb cycling. It's such a long word. I call it CKCC because I like saying it. It's such a tongue twister. The point of this is we still want to control our insulin. We never want to raise our insulin to the level that our body's going to store fat. So we still have to be strategic about the types of carbs we eat and how many, because I want people to find is their insulin threshold, right? So how many carbs can they have before their insulin goes up to that level where it stores body fat? And then what can we eat to keep it in that level? So legumes are safe, the starchier vegetables are going to be safe. You're going to be pushing it when you're going into the fruit. So you have to be careful.
So when you say legumes, things like beans, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So, the lentils and the black beans and the chickpeas, stuff like that, whatever you can handle. Now, when we're getting into the fruit, that's where it gets a little complicated, because things like pineapple and mango, it might be too much. It might raise your insulin way too much. So, you could probably have those sometimes a little bit, but we would more do things like cherries. We can bring in an apple every here and there. So you still have to be very strategic. Carb cycling, again, it's not like any carb goes. And that's the problem with the way, if you Google right now carb cycling, you're going to find bodybuilders that are telling you to up your carbs to 400 grams a day on days you work out. We never want to do that, especially for women.
They push a lot of grains.
Yes, that's going to skyrocket your blood sugar, raise your insulin. We never want to get to that level. Yes. So we don't need to, by the way, because normal women they're not as extreme, heavy bodybuilders like those guys. So that's where clean keto carb cycling is different, because we're still very strategic about where our insulin levels are at.
So if you're going to eat an apple, by the way, guys, you got to throw some almond butter on it. Oh.
Well, yeah, and again, you always want to balance, you want to be smart. Like, I'm having a carbohydrate. How can I pair it with protein to minimize the blood sugar rise and all these things? So again, there's so much details that go into it. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to carb cycle. Let me go get, a thing of bread and eat it on my high carb day. So there's a lot of details that go into it, and it's just about being smart and strategic.
Or French fries from McDonald's. Wow, Lesya said I could carb up. Here we go.
Yeah, and that's where the whole, that's why I can't stand the whole if it fits your macros, craze and all of the, anything goes as long as it fits your macros. It's no. Yeah. Can we stop that? And it's like, how is that healthy? How is that improving your health, your metabolism, your long-term sustainable wellness and vitality? To just tell people, here are these macros, and just eat to fit into them.
Well, and it also negates any quality of fats. So vegetable oils, have at it. If it fits your macros, and a French fry and an apple are equivalent. If it fits your macro, so yeah.
And you can have French fries. You can make French fries from sweet potatoes, and you can make French fries and cook them from avocado oil and everything. So it's not that you can never have French fries. It's how are you making it? Where are you getting it? And if you're doing the vegetable oils, you're doing yourself more damage than you would think.
Exactly. Well, guys, if you want to learn more about her clean keto carb cycling, or as she calls it, CKCC, cleanketocarbcycling.com is the website. Go check her out over on Instagram as well. And then your main Instagram page for your coaching services. Bring it sexy back, tribe. BSB Tribe is the username over there on Instagram. Go check her out. Lesya, thank you so much for joining me today on the show.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. It's just always so great to talk to you.
Get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com.
Woo! You guys tried the Paleo Valley beef sticks? These beef sticks are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished. And many of the grass-fed beef sticks on the market today are actually finished with grains. They use beef sourced from small domestic farms in the United States. They only use real organic spices to flavor the beef sticks versus all the conventional spices sprayed with pesticides and other natural flavors from GMO. They also ferment the sticks, which creates naturally occurring probiotics, all great for your gut health. And best of all, they taste amazing. Again, they're Paleo Valley, my favorite beef stick on the market today. Go check them out, you guys. PaleoValley.com. Use the coupon code Jimmy at checkout for 15% off your first order. Paleo Valley beef sticks.